So, some of you may be wondering, still not? Okay. Then I will stay rooted here. Some of you may be wondering, the title of this talk is Warrior Women, and yet we just sang a song called No Holy War. So that distinction between the warrior and war. So to be clear, for me, this is not contrarian, this is not in some way a complete split. It's much deeper than that. When I talk about our warrior women, I'm talking about real women. The imagery behind me has goddesses from cultures past, as well as real physically fighting women warriors and a lot of spiritual warriors. And I want to really lean into that spiritual warrior side because that's really what we're focused on today. And I want to start with, I mentioned this in the meditation, Sophia. So Sophia is a beautiful name. It comes from the Greek for wisdom. And there's a site that I use sometimes for supplemental information called Divine Narratives. It deals with theological concepts and doctrines. So from that site, Sophia, when they talk about that, transcends that basic thought of just wisdom. It goes far beyond that. It embodies something much more profound, something that is personalized, something that is embodied, and it is both human and divine. In the Hebrew Bible, Sophia is often depicted as a feminine figure, which is this divine attribute of Sophia. Let me make sure this is turned off in case it's still picking up. So that's off, so anything else is just around me. All right, or was it invoking Sophia? Was that it? Okay, apparently that wasn't it. But the concept of Sophia is that physical embodiment, which goes beyond the physical. So for example, in the Wisdom of Solomon, Sophia is portrayed as a cosmic force, as part of the creation, as well as part of the sustaining of the universe. And that broader cosmic role has all of these multifaceted natures of wisdom that extend far beyond just the basic human form that we look at. So if, historically, we've had all of these beautiful, strong, wise attributes of femininity acknowledged and realized and supported and celebrated over the years, where along the way did patriarchy push all of that back? Because, let's face it, in our modern world, we sometimes recoil from that thought of, the divine feminine. And I have to say, for any man in the room, if you think the divine feminine does not apply to you, you could not be more wrong. In the same way that for any woman in the room, if you think the divine masculine does not apply to you, you couldn't be any more wrong. These are aspects of our being. They are principles and foundations of who we are and how we exist in the world. There's a site that was created by Reverend Jackie Fernandez. She is the senior minister at Unity Church of Overland Park. Michael and I know her through the music conferences. We also happened to run into her at the Parliament of World Religions in Chicago a couple of years ago, which was a lovely moment. We were passing, it's like, Jackie? And yes, it was. So there's, on that site, the site is Folks with Faith, and that is F-O-L-X, which I found really funny as I was looking at this, because that was the spelling that had sort of tripped up our beloved Susan Boatwright when she was reading announcements. So for anybody that isn't familiar with that spelling of folks, F-O-L-X, it is meant to be a more broadly encompassing term. It is meant to really speak to the marginalized, the underrepresented. It shows up frequently with the LGBTQIA community. But Folks with Faith is one that Jackie has created celebrating diversity. And there was an article by James Masters on that site called Gender Diversity in New Thought. And one of the first things, again, for anybody that's newer to Unity, one of the first things you need to know is that Unity, from its beginning, has had incredibly strong women leadership. Myrtle Fillmore was one of the co-founders. Myrtle and Charles together co-founded Unity. And women have always been in leadership, always. I believe sometimes outnumbering the men in leadership in unity. There is a history of inclusiveness, a history of diversity, a history of celebrating that. And I love that in this article, James Masters talks about that New Thought spirituality in its basic conception is this dynamic thing. It is not meant to stay static and only be what it ever was. It's meant to grow. As we learn things in science, we incorporate them in. How many times have we brought up like quantum physics and all these things that we've now understood that the Fillmores never did, but we see how they mix with spirituality. Same thing with our social learning and societal learning. The more we learn, the more we can dynamically grow and create. And they talk about the sacred masculine, the sacred feminine, and that those are united. And I love to also think in terms of, for all of us, the sacred non-binary. Like, if the masculine and feminine are in each of us, then so be it. Why can we not accept that with our fellow human beings? When somebody says, I identify somewhere in between that, okay, it is not our job to question or to push back. It is our job to accept and, if possible, understand. The website talks about how Hinduism has forever recognized a third gender, the hijras, and recognized that until the British colonialism kind of squelched it or tried to. Native American spirituality has long recognized the two-spirit genders, containing both male and female. And in both of these cases, culturally, those positions are revered. They are part of the spiritual fabric of those cultures. So when we are looking to be progressive, we're looking to grow, we're looking to expand and evolve, where do we look? How do we look for it? Who do we look to? For me, noting the history of unity, a lot of that is the female leadership. In general, the female leaders here and abroad tend to encompass so much more. Maybe this is my view. This is Ed's viewpoint speaking. I'll just say that right there. Ed's viewpoint. But in my experience, I have seen so much of that broader scope approached by female leaders. So like last week, Michael had talked to us about Esther and her story as it applied to Purim, the Jewish holiday. And we have so many of our own Esthers, not in the same exact story, but New Thought teachers like Emma Curtis Hopkins, the mother of New Thought, the teacher of teachers, Mary Baker Eddy, who created the Church of Christ Science and so on, Emily Cady, H. Emily Cady. The first New Thought book I ever read was her book, Lessons in Truth. Who's read Lessons in Truth in the room? Okay, we need to double those hands. It is a great book. Not same person holding up two, Michael, thank you. For at least for me, again, Charles Fillmore, I think, is brilliant, but sometimes his writing gets a little heady, even for me. H. Emily Cady, it's very approachable, very direct, very understandable. Myrtle Fillmore, as I mentioned, our co-founder. My favorite name in New Thought, Hypatia Hasbrook. Sounds like she went to Hogwarts. I love that name. But she wrote the Handbook of Positive Prayer. She led so much prayer understanding. Our own Betty Barta, who led here and then created Unity North, which lasted for many years. She had a radio program. Byron Katie. Who knows Byron Katie? Okay, that's good. For those that don't, she created an approach called The Work. So when you have a problem, there are 4 essential questions. You look at that statement, that truth, that problem, and you go, is it true? And then the second one is, can you absolutely know that it's true? The third one, how do you react when you believe that thing? And the last one, which is maybe my favorite, who or what would you be without that thought? Speaking of the work, Martha Creek, who goes around teaching the work and travels all over, and she teaches other things too, but she's very known for spreading Byron Katie's work. Our own local Dr. Sue Morter, right, who does healing energy work, created the Morter Institute. Darlene Parnell, poet, Darlene, this is what, your third poem that's been in Daily Word, and you've had writings that were in the Chicken Soup for the Soul books and other things, doing great work. Shirley Smith, who I assume was watching, she watches every week. She just doesn't come in person much. But she will write to Michael and myself. She sends us poems. In fact, she sent me a couple, and I'm hoping to read one of them at the end of the talk if I don't go over time. Let's see, Louise Dunn, of course, our Louise, brilliant speaker, brilliant leader, created the Church Within. Susan Boatwright, who I mentioned earlier, brilliant speaker, lovely human being, brilliant vocalist. Lauren Lane Powell, may she rest in power, whose song Immovable Peace we sang earlier. Our own Sally Applegate Rodeman. Every one of Sally's songs is a new thought lesson. If you have not listened to much of her music, please listen to it. And I have to apologize. She pointed out last time she did special music, I left her name out of the bulletin. It was on the wall behind her, but not in the bulletin. So to doubly acknowledge, Sally did special music a few weeks ago. Amazing talent. Rose Pulowski, who has now made her transition. By the way, we have some CDs of Rose's out there. They are free for you to take. So I would love everybody that does not have one to take one after the service. If you still have a CD player, I don't know who still does, but take one. Take one anyway. And on and on. And I know there are women in the room that I did not mention that deserve to be mentioned, and so many more. We are so blessed with women in leadership. Walk into the former Peace Chapel, that's now the meeting room. There are 3 women minister portraits in there, right? We have been so blessed. So one of the aspects that I find throughout these, and this was something that came up with the men's group reading, was the paths. There are 4 paths of the spiritual warrior. And again, to be clear, when I'm talking about a spiritual warrior, we are not talking about a warrior. We're talking about someone with inner strength, someone whose strength is in their stillness, is in their love, right? There is strength, there is power, there's majesty, there's all that stuff, but there's so much a grounding femininity to a spiritual warrior. So men, if you're afraid of that grounding femininity, you will never reach what you can reach as a spiritual warrior. Because if you are not grounded in it, you're going to be a warped form of warrior. You're going to be too heavy on the aggression to lean into your spirituality. So the 4 steps, and these are, well, I'll get to that in a second. The 4 steps, first one, the via positiva, the positive path. So in Unity, obviously, we deal with affirmations. We have a positive path right there. I'll get to more about that, though. Number 2, the via negativa, the negative path. Denials, letting go. Those are all part of the negative path. Path 3, via creativa, the creative path, the ability to bring something to being, to the ability to move forward. Number 4, finally, the via transformativa, the transformative path, which is leaning into justice. It leans into looking to the greater good. Bless you. So these 4 are from creation spirituality, and they also align with the Baha'i faith's 4 valleys. So just to go a little deeper, that was sort of a unity nutshell of what they are. But the via positiva is when you have ever in your life looked out at a thing that maybe other people didn't see as beautiful, and you're just like, all I can see is how gorgeous that thing is, how beautiful that is. You're living in the beauty. You're living in the joy. You're finding the gratitude where maybe others struggle with that. That's the via positiva. That's the positive path, finding those things. And we are called to do that frequently and in lots of different places in our life. The via negativa sounds like a bad thing, but it's not. So again, I mentioned denials. I mentioned letting go. The via negativa also deals with uncertainty and darkness, our own suffering, our grief. Those are all via negativa, and it's only a problem if we live in it, right? We're meant to experience those things and then move through them so that we can work on healing them. And if you never adopt that path, you can never heal it. Third, via creativa, the birthing, the creative part, the passion. This is really where sort of that Sophia mindset comes in, because that wisdom, right, is portrayed as that cosmic force that is there in the creation and is there in the sustaining, the nurturing of the universe. And then finally, the via transformativa, because if you do the others and you don't do this, it is only self-serving. The via transformativa, justice, healing, celebration, rebirth, resurrection, transcendence Are you working to bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots? Are you giving voice to the unvoiced? Are you giving power to the powerless? That's the via transformativa. For anybody that doesn't know, although it may be very slightly outdated, Big Unity has a diversity statement that came out in 1995. Who's aware of that statement? Just curious, like 4 or 5. Okay. I'm going to read through it. It's not real long. We believe that all people are created with sacred worth. Therefore, we recognize the importance of serving all people within the Unity family in spiritually and emotionally caring ways. We strive for our ministries, publications, and programs to reach out to all who seek unity support and spiritual growth. It is imperative that our ministries and outreaches be free of discrimination on the basis of race, color, gender, age, creed, religion, national origin, ethnicity, physical disability, or sexual orientation. I have a feeling if they updated it, they would include gender identity in there. Our sincere desire is to ensure that all Unity organizations are non-discriminatory and support diversity. In our effort to reach out to all people, as did our wayshower, Jesus Christ, we support the modification of our facilities to make them accessible to all people, regardless of physical challenges. The translation of our materials into Braille and other languages, and respect the wonderful variety of human commitments and relationships. We encourage ministers, teachers, and others within Unity to honor the strength of diversity within their spiritual communities. It is with love and in celebration of our unity in the midst of our wondrous diversity that we affirm this position. That was 30 years ago. 30 years ago. That's justice. That's healing. That's transformation. When you look at any woman's stories, I mentioned several women and there are so many more, but when you look at any one, you see that strength, you see that unfolding. I hate to say it, there are those that will say when you had the beginning of the Me Too movement and you would get the pushback of, not every man, and yet you would get the response of, well, trust me, every woman has experienced it. And somebody may prove me wrong, but that has been my experience. I have not yet spoken to a woman who said, oh, I've never been harassed, never had that happen to me. It's a universal experience. And we often don't talk about those things because it gets uncomfortable. Some of you may remember a couple of years ago, I gave a talk on Mother's Day, and I spilled family secrets. I talked about the strength of the women that I knew in my family. To be fair, I only spoke about those who had already made their transition. And I told the things that I knew, sometimes found out after the fact, about things that they had gone through. I had never known that my great-grandmother killed herself. Wasn't discussed. I didn't know about the sexual abuse that some of my family went through until much later. Or in one case, I was the one family member that knew, but couldn't say anything until after my sister had passed, because that was her secret to keep. But we can't heal what we won't reveal. If we are not willing to talk about it, it will sit and fester. We are never going into the via negativa. You have to talk about these things, and every woman has a story. And strong women, not necessarily trained for the physical fight, like a soldier is. And to clarify, with the Matthew Fox book, there was a beautiful discussion about the difference between soldiers and spiritual warriors. Soldiers go through a lot of training, and there's a lot of honor in being a soldier, but they are trained to be strong and to follow orders. That's what their training entails. You physically strengthen up, and you follow orders. Spiritual warrior, you spiritually strengthen up, and you follow your heart and the call of the divine. And those are two very different paths. And we sometimes confuse a soldier with a warrior. So, if we can look more directly at those 4 paths, it might help. Just some questions for you to consider. Are you refusing to look directly at a past experience and then let it go on that path of the via negativa? Are you choosing to only see the problems and not see the beauty of the via positiva? Are you refusing to allow yourself, or perhaps finding excuses for yourself, to not create something, to not make an endeavor happen on that via creativa? Because the true weapon of a spiritual warrior, if you want to call it a weapon, is their creativity. That is what you wield as a spiritual warrior. On the last via, the via transformativa, have you given up on healing? Have you given up on justice because it just seems so overwhelming? Until now, right? What is it saying? Justice deferred is justice denied. Right, now is the time. We resolve these things by mindfully approaching them. And for all of us, again, men and women, we have to take a look at these paths. We have to step into being spiritual warriors. I don't need you out there fighting against things. I need you standing up for things. We need you standing up for things. I want to give you 4 challenges. The last time I spoke, I think many of you took on a challenge of mindfulness, of trying to find 3 new things every day. Who at least attempted that? Awesome. If you didn't at least try it, please try it. That'll give you 5 challenges this week. But that was to find, in things that you find familiar, find 3 new things in them. Be mindful, be present. So your 4 challenges for this week are the 4 paths. I want you to spend time admiring the beauty, experiencing the joy, whatever that takes. Nature is a great source for that, but whatever that takes for you. I want you to spend some time in the negativa. I want you to look at a problem you've carried and do your best to release that problem. That may mean journaling about it. It may mean writing about it and burning it, whatever that means, but work on healing a wound. The creative. What have you been putting off doing that you could bring to the world? When you look at that list of women that I went through from New Thought, each creates and puts out things in the world. What are you putting out into the world? And even if you've already put out a lot of stuff, you're not done. That's why you're still here. If you were done, you wouldn't be here. And then finally, the transformative. Where can you stand for justice? How can you find ways to bridge those gaps? What is in your power to do? What are you called to do? What are you doing about it? Can we move from judgment to love? Can we move from war to an immovable peace? From prejudice to oneness? From hopelessness to justice? I'm going to go ahead and read. As I said, Shirley sent me 2 poems this week. The second one she sent was actually from her niece, and it was written 6 years ago for National Women's Day. But Shirley did give me permission to read it, so I'm going to do that now. So this is by Kira Alice, and it was penned on March 8th, 2020. It's called Women Before Me. She did all she could. She thought all hope was lost. She knew that equality came at a cost, and the price she paid so that women like me could live life with meaning and truly be free. But we are not truly yet free. We have a long way to go to learn from past women, to fight and to grow. We need every voice of ours to be heard. Our action powerful along with our words. Would she be proud of us, the change that we've made? We cannot let the years of those before us fade. We must keep her alive and her actions as well, with paths that she paved and her stories to tell. Because of her body, her gender, her race, we need to keep fighting because of women like her, for women that have a voice that need to be heard. So, how do we honor those that came before? What is ours to do to keep that torch burning? If you aren't sure, I would say start with this. Pause. Be still. Breathe. listen and discern and know. And allow divine wisdom, allow Sophia to flow through you and show you the way of all four paths of the spiritual warrior. And so it is. Amen, amin, aho, ashe, namaste.